What is midlife and why does it even matter? I'm Damon the Midlife Man. Stay tuned to find out. Let's first start by defining what is midlife, because I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what exactly is midlife. When you think of midlife, or you type it into a Google search, or you look for images of what they call midlife, or I even did some research into different midlife groups, everyone in it that I saw, the images that I saw, looked like people who were past midlife. Many people, I think, are kidding themselves about exactly when midlife is. It's very simple. It's math. The average man lives to be 78 years old. Or rather, 78 is the average lifespan for men in the US. What does that mean exactly? Well, if it's the average lifespan, it means that 78 years old, or at 78 years old, half the male population is dead by that time. So that's the average age. The maximum lifespan is 120. People don't really live beyond 120. Sure, they may have had somebody who made it to 121 or 122, but in general, the maximum lifespan for humans at this time is 120 years old. So if the average lifespan for a man is 78 years old, then what is middle age for a man? It's my age, 39. I'll be 40 by the end of the year. So I am in midlife. I don't look like the pictures that you see when you look up on the internet of midlife, or people who call themselves midlife. I've heard people call themselves, say that they're in midlife, or they're a midlife man or a midlife woman who were beyond the age of 60. Well, that's mathematically impossible. If you are 61, you are not midlife. Actually, you can make the argument that at 60 you're still midlife, but more than likely you're not going to live to 120 unless science has a major breakthrough and we expand the maximum lifespan to beyond 120 years. Why is this even important? For a number of reasons. If we're kidding ourselves about our lifespan, if we're not realizing that we're actually in midlife at the age of 39, and for some of us, we're in midlife before the age of 39. Not everybody makes it to 78 either. If we kid ourselves about where we are in our lifespan, it often means we're putting things off. We're putting our life off. We're putting off our mortality. We're putting off getting those things done and living our lives how we truly want to live them. We're pretending to be younger than what we are. And we tend in this country to be a culture that celebrates youth, more so in certain states than others. I live in California. California, youth is definitely over-celebrated. Nothing against youth. I was a youth at one time too. The youth of this country and of the world has a lot to offer. Midlife, though, is, to me, especially as a man, is the prime of our lives. Unfortunately, we have this thing called a midlife crisis that afflicts a lot of men. It afflicts women too. It seems to hit men a lot harder. Women tend to be more fluid about their identity, more fluid about who they are, more fluid about their mortality. They seem to accept their mortality better than men do. If you ask, it's important to understand where you are in your lifespan so that you don't waste time, that you address the things that you've been putting off. You address the stuff that you're afraid of, your biggest fears. Take care of that stuff now. Don't wait until you're 60 or 65 still calling yourself a midlife man when you're not. You're beyond that. Nothing against those ages either. Just know that you are past midlife after the age of 60. And if you're in your early 30s, know that this is not going to slow down. This is only going to get faster. Take care of your stuff now. If you continue to put it off, you might find suddenly that you're 40, 45 years old, realizing that your life isn't all that you wanted it to be, realizing that you've been living your life for the values of other people, of your parents. You still haven't taken care of the conditioning that you've been subjected to, you're still playing to that. And then what happens is you freak out in midlife when you realize, I'm halfway done with this. I'm halfway done with life, and it doesn't look like what I want it to be. Unfortunately, what a lot of men do is they hide and they go buy a sports car. They go date younger women. And again, there's nothing wrong with any of those things. If you want to buy a sports car and you have the money, go do it. If you're single and you want to date younger women, great. There's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of times this is an attempt to recapture youth or recapture something you feel like you've lost. But you can't. You're not going to ever be younger. When you accept your age and you accept where you are in your lifespan, this can be extremely empowering. In midlife, men tend to learn faster, remember even better, especially words. We tend to be in our peak wealth period where we're making the most money. We tend to be the most stable. The dark side of this, though, is depression. The dark side of this is suicide. And it does go up for men in midlife because, and I think, I don't know this for certain, but I felt that pain, I felt that suffering. And I think what happens for men is they realize that they've not been living their own life. They have not been living their own values. They've been living it for someone else. And when they realize this, and they realize they're halfway through their lives, this can be shattering. This can be very painful. And it doesn't have to be. You're going to go through some pain, most likely, and accepting all this. And that's part of not running from it. But when you truly accept that, then you realize that this is it. Now you get to live your life. There's a quote that's attributed to Carl Jung. I don't know. I've looked up trying to find if this was actually something he said, because you hear quotes all the time or you see them as memes on Facebook or other places on the internet. So I don't know if Carl Jung actually said this, but whoever said it, I think just nails it. And that is, in the first half of your life, you live your life for others. And then in the last half of your life, if you're lucky, you live it for yourself. And that's the beauty of being in midlife. And that's the beauty of that realization that, yes, you're halfway through this. And you know what? You don't have to live your life anymore for anyone else. You don't have to live your life to please anyone else. You're done with that. Now it's time for you to live your life. Now again, this doesn't mean shirk off responsibilities. This doesn't mean leave your wife. This doesn't mean abandon your kids. You can continue all those things, but do it in a way that is you and truly you. Just to give some perspective on this, Hugh Hefner just died. He died at the age of 91. What does that mean? That means at the age of 45, he was in midlife. That guy had all the success that any man would want. He certainly had all the women any man could want. And he lived a long and very healthy and very prosperous life. This is the ideal, the American dream. Somebody who truly fulfilled the typical male desire of prosperity and success and women. And he was at 45 in midlife, a time when most men do not identify with being in midlife. So think about that. I have friends who are my age, or maybe a year or two older, and I will mention something to them about being in midlife, and they'll say something like, well, yeah, I don't really think of myself that way, or I don't really identify with that. And most likely they're thinking of all those pictures, all those images of gray-haired men or gray-haired women who are not in midlife, but they call themselves that. Of course you don't want to identify with that if you're not that old. People often identify with being younger when they're not. I have friends who are in their early 30s. They think of themselves as being in their mid to late 20s. They know how old they are. It's not that they pretend like they're not that old, but they're acting from a place that they're that young, which gives them the sense that they have so much time. And it's not that there's any rush or urgency necessarily. When you accept where you are in your lifespan, when you accept that you're in midlife, it doesn't have to be a rush. Yeah, sure, there's a sense of urgency, but not an urgency as in, oh, I'm not good enough, or I haven't done enough, or no, it becomes a, now I know what I have to do. Now I have perspective. Now I know that looking back, what I've done so far and what I can do in the next 20 years or so. Because in the next 20 years, you will be able to do things you will not be able to do in the following 20 years. I'm just throwing this out there. Try it on, see if it works for you. Embrace where you are, even if you're younger than midlife, even if you're, I don't know, 30, 31, 32, 33, or if you're older. Truly accepting where you are in your lifespan. Sure, they may be a little freak out come out of that. Just acknowledge it, accept it, talk to it if you want. It's a part of you. Don't try to push it off. Don't try to push it away. Don't try to ignore it. It's been suppressed long enough. Tell it, I realize you're a part of me, and I accept you. You can stay here as long as you like, or you can stay here as long as it is necessary. What are you trying, or what are you wanting to communicate to me? Any feeling that comes up like that, any negative feeling that comes up from acknowledging where you are in your life. That comes from my good friend, Dr. Matt, who mentors me and is one of my coaches, and I'll have him here on some of my videos as well. He taught me that, and it's about accepting these feelings that you've been putting off, because that's what a lot of that is. Not accepting where you are in your lifespan, not accepting your age, has a lot to do with these things that we call core feelings. And I'll get into that more in a different video. By accepting these parts of us that are going to want to freak out and hearing the communication that it wants to give us, we can accept it and become whole. And being whole, we become more fulfilled. And then it just becomes about understanding where you are. And now you have a solid foundation, a solid perspective. You have that grounding to then realize what it is that you want. And what do you want the rest of your life to be like? Take a look at what the first half of your life has been like. And there's no blame here, there's no shame. Let go of any regret and say, okay, that was the first half of my life. The next half, I'm going to live it how I want to live it. And there's going to be pain, there's going to be suffering, but there's going to be a lot of fun, and there's going to be a lot of happiness, and there's going to be a lot of doing what I want to do and doing the things that fulfill me. Take care of this now. This is something you can do at any age, and you don't have to be a man. I'm speaking from a male perspective, a midlife male perspective. If you're a woman, though, and you're watching this, it all applies. It's all the same thing. I think women, though, are much better at this than men are. I looked up on Amazon for books on men going through midlife crisis. And the funny thing is I found far more books really written for women who are dealing with men, their husbands or their boyfriends, who are going through a midlife crisis. Why is that? Well, a few reasons. Men don't read most of the time. I read, I love to read. And men don't believe they're in midlife. And they sure as hell don't believe they're in crisis. They're usually the last to know it. Everyone else around them can see it. That's whenever they start dyeing their hair, they start, they go buy the motorcycle, they buy the sports car, they start dating younger women, they start listening to loud music, or they start trying to modernize themselves and recapture their youth. Usually the man who's going through this is the last to realize it. Everyone else around them realizes it. And it's not a comfortable thing. So before you get to that point, accept it. And then get to know you, who you really are, right now in your life. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, like I mentioned, please click the like button and hit the subscribe button if you would like more of these videos, and the bell so that you can get notified when I put new videos out. If you'd like to get my free MidLife Manifesto, click this icon here. It'll bring you to a page where you just enter your email, and The MidLife Manifesto will be emailed to you. The principles are universal. You can apply it really at any age and any gender. Again, it's coming from a perspective of a man in midlife. Wishing you joy, happiness, and passion at any point in your life. Take care.